There is a certain kind of man the world has almost forgotten. Not the loudest man in the room, not the one who fights every battle with his fists, but the man who knows exactly when to open his mouth and when to stay silent. The Stoics called this the highest form of masculine strength. And today, we're going to talk about the 12 moments in a man's life where speaking up is not just an option. It is his duty. 12 times a real man must speak up. Stoic Wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. These are the names that echo across 2,000 years of human civilization. Men who endured war, slavery, betrayal, loss, and still chose to live by a code. A code not written by kings or governments, but by something far more powerful. Conscience. Now, in the modern world, men are caught in a strange contradiction. We are told on one hand to be strong, assertive, unshakable. And on the other hand, we are told to stay quiet. Don't rock the boat. Don't make it awkward. Don't be that guy. But here's what the Stoics understood that most of us have forgotten. Silence when words are needed is not peace. It is cowardice wearing a mask. And I want to be very clear about something before we begin. This video is not about encouraging men to be aggressive, argumentative, or domineering. Quite the opposite. Stoic wisdom teaches us that the man who speaks at the right moment, with the right words, from the right place inside himself, is a rare and powerful force in this world. So today we are going to walk through 12 specific situations drawn from Stoic philosophy, ancient texts, and the hard-won lessons of real life, where a real man must find his voice. Some of these will make you uncomfortable. Some will make you nod your head. And at least one of them, I promise, is going to hit you in a place you didn't expect. Stay with me all the way to the end, because number 12 is the most important one of all, and most men never learn it. Let's begin. Moment number 1, when injustice is happening right in front of him. Epictetus, who was born into slavery and beaten so badly that he walked with a permanent limp, once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But here is the side of that teaching most people miss. He also believed that witnessing what? We've all been there. You're at work, and you watch a colleague get blamed for something they didn't do. You're at a family gathering, and someone is being spoken to with cruelty and contempt. You're walking down the street, and someone is being threatened, humiliated, dismissed, and the crowd does nothing, and you say nothing. The Stoics had a name for the pull towards silence in these moments. They called it the temptation of convenience, and they considered it one of the most dangerous forces in a man's character. Because here's what happens when a good man stays silent in the face of injustice. The injustice grows, and slowly, quietly, so does his shame. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." Speaking up when injustice is happening is not about being a hero. It's not about picking a fight or escalating a situation unnecessarily. It's about something much simpler and much harder. It's about being the kind of man you can look at in the mirror. The question in that moment is never, what will people think of me if I speak? The Stoic question is, what kind of man am I becoming if I don't? Real men, as the Stoics defined them, are not men who never feel fear. They are men who feel the fear and open their mouths anyway. Moment number 2. When someone he loves is making a destructive choice. This one is harder, much harder. Because here, the temptation to stay silent comes wrapped in something that feels like love. We tell ourselves, it's not my place. He'll figure it out. I don't want to damage the relationship. But Seneca, in his famous letters to Lucilius, wrote something that should stop every man cold. No man can live a happy life, or even a supportable life, without the study of wisdom. And then he went further. He said that a man who sees his friend walking toward a cliff and says nothing out of politeness, out of fear, out of a desire to avoid conflict, is not a kind man. He is simply a coward who calls his cowardice kindness. Think about the person in your life right now, a brother, a friend, a son, a father, who is making choices that are slowly destroying them. The drinking that's becoming something else. The relationship that everyone can see is poisonous. the financial decision that has catastrophe written all over it, the path that leads somewhere dark. And you see it, and you have said nothing. The Stoics teach us that true friendship, the highest kind of friendship, is not unconditional agreement. It is unconditional honesty. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, described the ideal friend as a second self. And what that means is, a real friend tells you what a wise version of yourself would want to hear, not what your emotions want to be told. Speaking up to someone you love about a destructive choice takes courage. It risks the relationship. It risks your comfort. It risks being misunderstood. But silence in this case is its own kind of abandonment. A real man speaks. With compassion, with respect, with love. But he speaks. Moment number 3. When he is being disrespected. Now here's where Stoic philosophy surprises people. Most assume that Stoicism teaches men to simply absorb disrespect, to be unmoved, to let the insults roll off them like water off stone. And in some contexts that is exactly right. Epictetus famously wrote, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." But there is a critical distinction the Stoics made, one that modern men desperately need to understand. There is a difference between being emotionally unmoved by disrespect and being silent in the face of it. A Stoic man doesn't rage. He doesn't humiliate in return. He doesn't lose himself. But he also does not quietly accept treatment that diminishes his dignity, because his dignity is not just personal, it is a standard. When a man allows himself to be consistently disrespected without response, he is not practicing Stoic calm. He is teaching others how to treat him. He is lowering the standard not just for himself, but for every person watching. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. As emperor, he faced senators who mocked him, generals who challenged him, advisors who undermined him. He did not explode. He did not collapse. He spoke clearly, firmly, without apology. Speaking up when you are being disrespected doesn't require anger. It requires clarity. It sounds like, "I need you to speak to me differently." It sounds like, "That's not acceptable." It sounds like a man who knows his own worth. And here's the deeper Stoic truth. The man who calmly, firmly holds his standard in the face of disrespect is not a threat. He is not aggressive. He is something far more powerful. He is simply not available to be treated that way. Moment number 4. When the truth needs saying and everyone else is staying quiet. There's a phenomenon in psychology called pluralistic ignorance. It's when a group of people all privately disagree with something, but assume they're the only one who feels that way. So everyone stays quiet, and collectively, a group of people who all know something is wrong ends up pretending it's fine. It happens in boardrooms, in families, in friendships, in nations. The Stoics didn't have a name for it, but they had an answer for it. Cato the Younger, one of the most celebrated Stoic figures in Roman history, was famous for one thing above all else. He said what was true, regardless of who was in the room, regardless of what it cost him, and it cost him everything. His career, his alliances, eventually his life, and yet, 2,000 years later, we still say his name. There will be moments in your life, and you probably already know what they are, where the truth is sitting in the middle of the room like an uninvited guest. Everyone can see it. No one will name it. The project that everyone knows is failing. The leader that everyone knows is wrong. The decision that everyone knows will cause harm. The behavior that everyone knows is unacceptable. And in that room, in that silence, there is a question hanging in the air that only one person needs to answer. Is it going to be you? The Stoics teach that a man's character is not revealed in the easy moments. It is revealed in the moment when truth is inconvenient, when speaking costs something, when the room is against you. Seneca wrote, "It takes more courage to be honest when everyone is pretending than it does to be honest when no one cares. A real man speaks the truth the room needs to hear, not to be right, not to be admired, but because the truth, left unspoken, poisons everything it touches." Moment number 5. When his children need guidance, not silence. If there is one silence in a man's life that haunts him more than any other, it is the silence he kept with his children. I want you to think about something for a moment. Think about the things your father never told you, the wisdom he carried but never passed on, the conversations that never happened, the guidance that never came. Maybe he was busy, maybe he was afraid, maybe he thought you'd figure it out, maybe he thought you knew. You didn't, and neither do your children. The Stoics placed enormous weight on what they called the transmission of virtue. The idea that wisdom is not something a man holds privately. It is something he is obligated to pass forward. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor of Rome, wrote in his meditations about the debt he felt to the men who taught him, his grandfather, his teachers, his adoptive father, Antoninus. He named them. He described what each of them gave him, not wealth, not status, wisdom. A real man talks to his children about what life actually is, about failure and how to stand back up, about work and what gives it meaning, about relationships and what they demand, about character and why it matters more than success. He tells them about his own mistakes, not to burden them, but to protect them. He says, "I love you," not once, not on birthdays, but often enough that it becomes the background music of their life. He answers the hard questions about death, about purpose, about right and wrong, even when he doesn't have perfect answers. Because here is what the Stoics knew about children. They are always listening, even when no words are being spoken. And the silence of a father, the things he never said, the conversations he never had, become part of who his children are. Speak to your children, teach them, guide them. Tell them the truth about the world, and then tell them you believe they can handle it. That is not softness. That is the most important work a man will ever do. We're halfway through, and I want to ask you something. Which of these 5 moments has hit closest to home for you so far? Is there someone in your life you need to speak to, a conversation you've been avoiding? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this video is giving you something, if it's speaking to something you felt but couldn't quite name, please hit the like button right now. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps this message reach the men who need it most. Now, let's keep going. Moment number 6, when he needs to say, "I was wrong." There is a particular form of courage that the modern world has nearly destroyed in men. It's the courage to say 3 words, "I was wrong." We live in an era of infinite justification. There are entire industries built around helping people explain why they don't need to apologize, why they were actually right, why the other person misunderstood, why the circumstances made it inevitable. And men, real men, have been slowly conditioned to see admission of error as weakness. But listen to what Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, privately, in his journals, never intending anyone to read it. "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. And if you have said or done what is not right, correct it." The Stoics did not believe in ego protection. They believed in character refinement. And the only path to refinement is the willingness to look clearly at where you have fallen short and say so. Think about the relationships in your life that have been damaged by your pride, by the argument you won on a technicality but lost in truth, by the apology you were too proud to give, by the wrong you knew you committed but never acknowledged. Those silences have weight. They accumulate. They create distance between people that becomes harder and harder to cross. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." And I'll add to that, it is impossible for a man to grow past a mistake he will not admit making. A real man says, "I was wrong," not as a defeat, but as an act of integrity, not to please others, but because truth matters more to him than his own comfort. That is not weakness. That is the mark of a man who is still becoming. Moment number 7, when he must defend his values under pressure. The crowd is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. It whispers, it nudges, it applies its pressure so gradually that most men don't even notice they've drifted away from themselves until they are somewhere they never intended to be. Seneca wrote one of the most powerful warnings in all of Stoic literature. Retire into yourself as much as you can. Associate with those who are likely to make you better. Welcome those who are capable of improving you. The crowd is the enemy of virtue. Now, I want to be clear. This is not a call to isolate, to be arrogant, to reject community. The Stoics were deeply social thinkers. What Seneca is describing is the specific moment when the pressure of a group begins to push a man towards something he knows is wrong, and the choice he faces in that moment. You know the scenario. The colleagues laughing at a joke that dehumanizes someone. Do you laugh along? The group of friends encouraging a decision you know is destructive. Do you nod and go along? The culture, the trend, the movement of the moment pushing you toward a position your deeper self rejects. Do you comply? Cato the Younger, when asked why he didn't simply adjust his principles to match the political winds of Rome, said, "I would rather be hated for doing right than loved for doing wrong." This is the moment that separates a man with values from a man who merely holds values when it costs him nothing. Under pressure, under ridicule, under the gravitational pull of the crowd, a real man opens his mouth and says where he stands. Not to be rebellious, not to be difficult, but because a man who cannot defend what he believes in is a man who doesn't truly believe in anything. Moment number 8, when gratitude is owed and left unsaid. This one is quieter than the others, but it may be the one that stays with you the longest. Marcus Aurelius begins his meditations not with philosophy, not with strategy, not with battle plans, but with a list of people he is grateful for. His grandfather, his father, his mother, his teachers, his emperor and adoptive father Antoninus Pius. Page after page of gratitude. The most powerful man in the Western world, sitting alone with his thoughts, making sure he remembered and recorded the people who made him who he was. Is there someone in your life right now, a parent, a teacher, a mentor, a friend who shaped you, helped you, believed in you, and has never heard you say so? Because here is what we don't want to think about. That moment might not always be available to you. We assume the people who love us know we love them. We assume gratitude doesn't need to be spoken because it's surely understood. We keep it for later, for the right moment, the right words. And for too many men, the right moment never comes, and the words are given to someone who can no longer hear them. Seneca wrote, "Let us greedily enjoy our friends, because we do not know how long this privilege will be ours." A real man tells the people who matter to him, in plain, simple, honest words, what they have meant to his life, not in a eulogy. Now, while they are here. Moment number 9, when he must say no. The inability to say no is one of the great silent crises in men's lives today. It does not announce itself. It doesn't come with dramatic consequences overnight. It simply builds, slowly, quietly, an entire life, constructed around the needs and expectations of everyone else, with almost nothing left at the center for the man himself. Epictetus taught that the clearest path to inner freedom begins with a simple question. Is this within my control, and does it align with my values? If the answer to either is no, then so is the man's answer. No is a complete sentence. It requires no apology, no lengthy explanation, no performance of guilt. And yet, for many men, saying no feels like a violation of some unwritten contract with the world. Like disappointing people is a kind of failure. Like boundaries are selfish. The Stoics would say this is confusion, and they would say it comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of what your life is for, your time, your energy, your attention, your presence. These are not infinite. They are among the most precious and most finite things you possess, and every yes you give to something that does not deserve it is a no you are giving to something or someone that does. A real man knows what he stands for, what he values, what he is building, and he guards it with a calm, firm, unapologetic no whenever it's being pulled in a direction that does not serve the life he is trying to live. Moment number 10, when he has failed and needs to own it. Failure happens to every man. The business that didn't work, the relationship that fell apart, the plan that collapsed, the goal that was missed, the role you weren't ready for. It is coming, or it has already been here. And the question is never whether you will fail. The question is what kind of man you are when you do. Epictetus wrote, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by their opinions about things. And the Stoic approach to failure begins here with an honest accounting, not blame-shifting, not minimizing, not the long list of external factors and impossible circumstances. Just, I failed. Here is what I did wrong. Here is what I'm going to learn from it. That statement, spoken out loud to the people affected, to your own inner self, is one of the most powerful things a man can say, because it breaks the spell of shame. Shame lives in silence. It grows in the spaces between what happened and what was admitted, and it is one of the most paralyzing forces in a man's life. When you own your failure, clearly, honestly, without self-pity, you take back the power that failure took from you. A real man stands in front of his failure and says, I own this, not as punishment, but as the first step forward. Moment number 11, when he must stand alone. There will be a moment, perhaps there already has been, when a man must take a stand that no one around him will support, when doing the right thing means standing completely alone. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire for nearly 2 decades, and he often wrote about the isolation that came with holding to his principles in a world that rewarded compromise. He didn't write about it with self-pity. He wrote about it with the quiet, steady commitment of a man who understood. The worth of a position is not determined by how many people hold it. Cato the Younger stood against Julius Caesar, when every politician in Rome had already surrendered or switched sides. He knew he would lose. He spoke anyway. Epictetus taught in poverty and obscurity, enslaved, dismissed, and his words changed the world. These men understood something that the crowd will never understand. History is not changed by the majority. It is changed by the man who is willing to be the only one. There will be a moment, perhaps in your professional life, perhaps in your family, perhaps in your community, now where the right path leads away from the group, where integrity means isolation, at least for a time. And in that moment, the question is not, what will everyone think? The Stoic question is, can I live with myself if I don't? A real man speaks and stands, alone if he has to. Because a conscience that requires company is not a conscience. It's just a crowd. Moment number 12, when he must speak to himself. This is the one. This is the conversation that determines every other conversation. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations for the public. He wrote them for himself. They were private letters from a man to his own conscience, a daily practice of honesty, where he examined himself, challenged himself, corrected himself, and reminded himself of what truly mattered. He was one of the most powerful men who ever lived, and every morning he spoke to himself like a student. Here is what most men never do, and what every Stoic master considered the foundation of everything else: the daily conversation with yourself. Not the passive drift of thoughts in the shower, not the scrolling, not the distraction. A real conversation, an honest one. Who am I becoming? Am I living by what I claim to believe? Am I the man I want my children to see? What am I afraid to admit, even to myself? What do I know I need to do that I keep putting off? Seneca wrote, examine yourself, question yourself, watch yourself. He wasn't talking about self-obsession. He was talking about the discipline of self-awareness, the commitment to be honest with yourself when it would be easier, more comfortable, more convenient to look away. Because here is the hardest truth in all of Stoic wisdom. A man who cannot speak truthfully to himself cannot truly speak truthfully to anyone else. All the courage we've talked about today, the courage to name injustice, to guide the people you love, to hold your values under pressure, to own your failures, to stand alone, all of it flows from one source. A man who has learned to have that conversation, the most private one, the one where there is no audience, no applause, no reputation to protect, just you and the truth of who you are. Speak to yourself honestly every day. Hold yourself to the standard. Don't let yourself off the hook. And then, equipped with that honesty, go out and speak where it matters. That is the Stoic way. That is the way of a real man. So let's bring it all together. The Stoics did not teach silence. They taught intentional speech. They taught men to know the difference between words that come from fear, ego, and impulse, and words that come from wisdom, courage, and love. They taught that a real man speaks, when injustice demands it, when someone he loves is in danger, when disrespect needs to be named, when truth needs a voice in the room, when his children need a guide, when he owes the words "I was wrong," when his values are under pressure, when gratitude is owed, when boundaries must be held, when failure must be owned, when the crowd is wrong and he knows it, and every morning when the most important conversation of his life begins. That last one, that internal voice, is where all of this begins, because you cannot give what you have not first found in yourself. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. If this video spoke to something in you today, something real, please do one thing. Share it with one man in your life who needs to hear it. A brother, a friend, a father, a son. You might not have the words for the conversation you need to have with him. Maybe this video is that conversation. Like this video if it gave you something. Subscribe to Wisdom of the Stoics for more content like this. We go deep. And we go honest. Every single week. And in the comments, I want to know, which of these 12 moments do you need to work on most? I'll be reading every reply. Until next time, speak with courage, live with intention.